They came with a brass band, a giant paper stalk and a message for the royal family. Young demonstrators marching towards Buckingham Palace this morning on their way to deliver a 100,000 signature petition. They say the royal family owns 1.4% of the UK's landmass and should embrace a rewilding. The idea is to return managed agricultural land like this to something more like this, providing a new habitat for native species pushed to the brink by intensive farming. Species like beavers and perhaps even wolves one day. The idea has been met with resistance among some in rural communities, but those gathered believe there's no other option.
We want to get our voices heard to show that to rewild our country and to show more greenery, more wild nature. Just let it be. Don't destroy it.
We need to obviously bring back all our pollinators and all of our other insects and all the other amazing creatures that, help us to survive on the planet.
What do you say to those who are sceptical of rewilding, farmers for instance?
Well, it's they've had their day.
This is an SOS from the kid.
In front of the palace, a sing-song and a chance to hear from the man who led the march with the air of the Pied Piper, the conservationist Chris Packham.
On my watch as an environmentalist and conservationist, I have failed.
Her Majesty wasn't available to receive them, but the protesters' representative is confident the Queen will get the message.
They were really, really posh, I don't know how to put it, servants there, really posh servants. And then we handed it over. We need to have lots of the royals' land transferred because it's really bad for the environment right now, and we need to make it really eco-friendly.
The royal estate say members of the royal family are committed to conservation and that they're constantly looking for new ways to continue improving biodiversity. But for Chris Packham, it's actions, not words, that are needed.
They own a lot of land, 800,000 acres. That's 1.4% of our UK land surface. Much of that land is in poor ecological condition. Places like Balmoral, which are given over to deer stalking and grouse shooting, virtually denuded of trees when it should be a temperate rainforest. So given that the royal family, in Prince Charles' case, have always embraced the environment and spoken out about it, and now the young royals are doing the same, we think that they ought to not just be speaking about it, but actually doing something about it in their own backyard.
So what are we talking about? Wolves at Windsor Castle?
Wolves at Windsor Castle would be a big wish. Even for an idealist conservationist like myself, we've got to be more pragmatic about it. Rewilding isn't just about wolves, it's about rebuilding those habitats quite literally from the soil up. And wolves would be a long way off.
You're making it sound very simple, but you know how controversial rewilding can be. Farmers in particular say that rewilding doesn't understand how the land is used, it doesn't understand the need for food production. So what do you say to your critics?
Well, there are many people who manage the land in the UK who think they've got it right because they've been doing it in a certain way for a certain amount of time. But let me say this to them. We live in one of the most nature-depleted countries in the world. We are ranked 189 out of just over 200. How can they tell me that they're doing it right?
One of the protesters earlier told me that farmers have had their day. Do you believe that?
I don't think that farmers have had their day, or we'll all be hungry tomorrow. We have to produce food, but we know that we can produce food in a more sustainable way, which supports a broader biodiversity and a more healthy rural economy. Our enormous reliance on chemicals, fertilisers and pesticides has proven to be entirely fallacious. We've lost 75% of our large insects in the UK. The impact that that's had on the broader landscape, loss of birds, bats, mammals and so on and so forth, is significant, profound and obvious.
This isn't just about the elite or large landowners. What you're talking about will have implications on ordinary people, for instance through higher food prices. Do you think people are ready for that?
Well, I think we're already going to be paying higher food prices by Christmas if we believe the news. I think for a long time we in the UK have had the luxury of the lowest food prices as a percentage of our income of any country in Western Europe. We've got used to cheap food. It's how we sell our food. It's all about price. Well, there are two prices when you go into a supermarket. There's the one in pounds and pence, and then there's the environmental cost of that food. And I think at this point in time, what we're going to have to reconcile is that those two things are going to have to balance out.
And what's the deadline for the Queen?
The deadline for the Queen and the royal family, I would like to think, is COP26. Because I have a fantasy that having received the petition signed by more than 100,000 people from these young people this morning, they would now, in the few weeks that remain before that conference, think very seriously about making an announcement on that stage.
Chris Packham, thank you very much.
You're welcome.